What's up, YouTube? Welcome back. So, I want to share with you guys an article that Megan Thee Stallion wrote. It's an op-ed article for the New York Times called Megan Thee Stallion, semicolon, Why I Speak Up for Black Women. So, let's get into this, all right? So, the subtitle, or or sub headline, however you want to call it, is I'm not afraid of criticism and quote unquote protect black women should not be controversial. Hmm. And I do agree. Should that really be a phrase that causes controversy? There's like protect black women. Really, should it be a phrase that really even has to be said? But let's get into this article. So, in the weeks leading up to the election, black women are expected once again to deliver victory for Democratic candidates. I think black people in general, but a lot of people say that maybe more black women vote versus black men, which I think that's probably true. Um, but yeah, overall, I do agree with that. And probably the Democratic Party is going to get the majority of black women's votes, just like in the previous election. They got the majority of black women's votes. We have gone from being unable to vote legally to a highly courted voting bloc, all in little more than a century. Hmm. Yeah, I say again, black people in general, but of course, she's highlighting black women for a specific purpose in this article. I'm not mad or angry about that, but I'm just saying I think it's just black people in general. Um, Despite this, and despite the way so many have embraced messages about racial justice this year, black women are still constantly disrespected and disregarded in so many areas of life. And I do find that to be a bit hypocritical, speaking more so in the community when it does come to like, oh, Black Lives Matter. Folks want to, shout and champion that phrase, and even perhaps the organization as well, but at least the phrase, right? But then when it comes to actually holding black people accountable who harm other black people, you know, then it tends, folks tend to not want to follow through with truly making Black Lives Matter, right? She goes on to say, I was recently the victim of an act of violence by a man. After a party, I was shot twice as I walked away from him. We were not in a relationship. Truthfully, I was shocked that I ended up in that place. It probably was a shock. You probably didn't think that the situation was probably going to escalate to that point. They probably may have just had some sort of an argument. Again, this is just speculation and conjecture on my part. I don't know. I wasn't there. But the way that Megan is presented is seemingly Tory Lanez, let's just, call out Tory Lanez, um, overreacted and allegedly shot her as a result of him overreacting. But, yeah, Megan was a victim of violence, and again, going back to Black Lives Matter, a lot of people were taking this as a joke. A lot of people were joking about this, saying that Megan somehow brought it on herself or that she was deserving of it, which a lot of times when it comes to black women experiencing violence, that does seem to be sort of a narrative that's low key pushed and sometimes even just blatantly pushed, where it's like, somehow, some way, this black woman was deserving of it. She caused it somehow, right? But she goes on to say, my initial silence about what happened was out of fear for myself and my friends. Even as a victim, I have been met with skepticism and judgment. The way people have publicly questioned and debated whether I played a role in my own violent assault proves that my fears about discussing what happened were unfortunately warranted. That's sad. But I think Megan didn't do herself any favors by being a predator protector and protecting Tory Lanez, and as well not speaking up about the incident and reporting the incident. Ultimately, she didn't do herself any favors in the long run. I do try to be sympathetic and understanding of the situation that she was in regards to having to deal with the police and maybe feeling that she was not safe going to the police at that time, and not safe truly saying what happened because they may end up turning to the police, may end up using violence on them in some way and justifying it somehow, some way. But I do know that Megan does have a history of being a predator protector. Unfortunately, I I'm hoping I'm hoping that Megan is really learning something from this situation. I think that she is. Hopefully, this situation and this lesson she'll take with her for the rest of her life, so that she doesn't end up in a situation like this as well. Maybe even her future kids, if she decides to have kids, don't end up in a situation like this. Um, but yeah, she says, even as a victim, I have been met with skepticism and judgment. That is something that is true, especially from the black community, right? I feel like the non black community probably just ignored the story. I heard like a report on it, like maybe here or there from, mainstream media outlets or non black media outlets here and there. But largely, it seems like the story hasn't really been as popular as it should. And I think that's largely because it happened to a black woman. Honestly, if it happened to a black man, even, they love to push those stories, black men and police brutality and stuff like that. Right. But yeah, Megan has been met with skepticism and judgment by black people, black men and black women, like, oh, what did you do? What was all that happened? Megan is seemingly not being given the benefit of the doubt, while Tory Lanez is seemingly being given the benefit of the doubt in this situation for some reason, even though Megan is the one that was shot in her feet, as in 2 shots. All right. Thankfully, the authorities have gotten involved, and Tory Lanez has officially been charged with possession of a firearm as well as shooting Megan. Hopefully, justice is served in this case, and hopefully, Tory Lanez's well, he's not a citizen. His green card status or visa status will be revoked, and he won't be able to be in the United States anymore. And, she says that people have publicly questioned and debated whether she played a role in her own violent assault. Again, where it's like, it's something that you did, black woman. Something that you did. It's a choice that you made. You have to choose better. We can't be responsible for your choices that you make. And I do think that that is a thing. Like, you do have to make choices and you do have to choose wisely. That's true. But also, people who do bad things have to be held accountable, And I feel like people are putting it all on Megan while not putting much on Tory. Yeah, Tory may get a little couple of jokes here and there, but I don't think really people are going as hard as they should go on Tory Lanez. For one reason or another, people, and specifically in the black community, folks are really holding back on Tory Lanez. Tory Lanez really hasn't gotten that much criticism. Megan Thee Stallion has gotten a lot more criticism than Tory Lanez, and she's the victim. And it does make me wonder, like, if the roles were reversed and Megan Thee Stallion shot Tory Lanez in his feet, how would the black community react to that? Would they be like, well, would they be saying, oh, I'm sure Megan had a good reason for shooting him. I'm sure she didn't shoot him for just no reason at all. Or would they be saying like, oh, why did she shoot that black cane? Why she shoot that black brother like that? She ain't have to do that. Right? Even though they don't even know the situation, but they'll just assume that Megan was just some, maybe jealous, angry, bitter, overreactive black woman who just resorted to violence to deal with the situation with Tory Lanez. I feel like that's how it would play out. I could be wrong, but I feel like if the roles were reversed and flipped, that's how it probably would play out. Megan would still be blamed as a victim and as a victimizer. Both times she would be blamed for it. Like somehow, some way, it was your fault. Even if you're a victim, it was your fault. You know how messed up that is? You know? But, you gotta laugh to keep from crying. Because this really is just really bad. But she goes on to say in the article, after a lot of self-reflection on the incident, or on that incident, I realized that violence against women is not always connected to being in a relationship. Yeah, because a lot of people speculated that they had sort of a relationship. Tory Lanez make it seem like they had some sort of a relationship based on him releasing his CD, his music about the situation, versus an official statement about the situation, which he should have been roasted and toasted about that too. But no, he's getting a pass on that too. You know, trying to make some money off the situation. I mean, I guess he got to recoup that bail money. He did spend like, I believe maybe like $35,000 to get out of jail. So I guess so. But yeah, that is true. You, as a woman, you don't have to be in a relationship, with a man to experience violence by men. That, oftentimes that's the case, but not always. Instead, it happens because too many men treat all women as objects, which helps them to justify inflicting abuse against us when we choose to exercise our own free will. And, here's sort of like a thing where I do got to call Megan out a little bit, because I do think that what she's saying has truth in it, but at the same time, Megan Thee Stallion does look like present herself in a certain way that makes men view her as low-key a sexual object. She just did the collaboration with Cardi B for the song WAP, and as well she has another song out, Don't Stop, sort of along the same lines. And I do while I do feel that Megan is having, saying some truths in this. I also feel that Megan sort of plays into this because there's money to be had when you're presenting yourself a certain way, in a sexual way, as a sexual object, you know. And because of that, I feel like some people are going to dismiss Megan's message totally because one, they don't really want to deal with it, and as well, they're like, well, you are part of the problem, Megan. And they'll just use that as an excuse to dismiss her message because they really didn't really want to deal with the message anyway. Just now they just have somewhat of a valid excuse. All right. But, I do notice when black men come through and who have been, thugging, selling drugs, being gangsters, and rapping about it and whatnot, folks aren't so quick to want to throw up that in their face when they want to, change, speak on issues, in and outside the black community and that affect the black community, or even when they want to, try and turn over a new leaf. You know, some of these dudes, these rapper dudes especially, come through talking about, thugging and shooting and killing, but on the flip side, want to yell and chant, Black Lives Matter, which, is interesting because probably the majority of their victims probably were black people. You know, crime tends to be intraracial, you know. So I do feel like in this situation, you know, if it was a black man with a sketchy past or some sort of sketchy public image, black people wouldn't be completely dismissive of the message. Like, say, they're trying to be with Megan Thee Stallion. So I do think that there is a bias, a hidden bias there that we do have to acknowledge and call out. Because when it comes to hidden biases, it's you have to be aware of it. It has to be called out so that you're more conscious of it, so that you don't do it, like perpetuate it anymore. And that's the thing, when you're more conscious of the bias, you're less likely to be biased. But let's go on to the next part. From the moment we begin to navigate the intricacies of adolescence, we feel the weight of this threat and the weight of contradictory expectations and misguided preconceptions. Many of us begin to put too much value on how we are seen by others. That's if we are seen at all. Maybe that's why Megan presents herself the way that she does. But, she goes on to say some other stuff in this article, right? So let's get into this. The issue is even more intense for black women who struggle against stereotypes and are seen as angry or threatening when we try to stand up for ourselves and our sisters. So, what do you think about that? Especially the black women. Do you think that black women who, try to stand up for themselves and speak out for other black women and on behalf of black women, do you think that they're viewed as being passionate and protective of their sisters and themselves, or do you think they're viewed as maybe being angry or threatening? There's not much room for passionate advocacy if you are a black woman. Do you agree with that? Do you think that black women don't have much room to be passionate advocates, at least for themselves? But I feel like even if the black woman was a passionate advocate for black men, she probably would be viewed. Well, I feel like folks maybe would be less critical. But if she was a passionate advocate for herself, then I think that's when folks would be more critical, right? And as well as she was a passionate advocate for, say, the feminist movement or something. It would be the same thing with that too. It's pretty much like if you push in certain agendas, then folks will let you slide. But you're pushing your own agenda for your own self, then it's like, I don't know, you angry black woman. You sound like you sound kind of bitter. I think you sound like you're a bit of a threat. We gotta deal with you, black woman. So Megan goes on to say, I recently used the stage at Saturday Night Live to harshly rebuke Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron for his appalling conduct in denying Breonna Taylor and her family justice. I feel like technically Tamika Mallory rebuked, Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron, and you just used a soundbite to put it in, as I mentioned in the previous video. right? But I guess, you used your stage and your platform to further push Tamika's message. I guess you can get, like, a finder's fee for that. I guess. But yeah, and ultimately, I feel like Daniel Cameron does deserve criticism. On the flip side, I do think that he's a bit of an easy target as well. And I feel like Megan probably should have been calling out these two presidential candidates, really four, if you count the vice president, um, calling them out and seeing like, hey, what are you going to do about this? At least Joe Biden, he's the Democratic candidate and he's probably going to be getting the majority of black votes. By the way, I voted early on Wednesday, you know, this past Wednesday. And really, I'm thinking, like, should I have voted? Like, you know, but don't worry, y'all. I went in there and I played my trump card, y'all. I played the trump card, put it in there, like, all right, we're gonna trump this voting booth today. All right. I'm joking. But yeah, I did vote, and I was like, is it really like, like what? Is it really getting in us anywhere? Like, not voting in itself, but like in this particular situation with the two candidates, is one candidate really going to be getting us to the promised land, or even justice? Like that's another story. I could get all into that, but it's pretty much just choosing between like, okay, I've got a bad situation and we got a situation that's I guess is you know somewhat better, but is it really? Like it looks better, but if you probably get into it, it's like, okay, it's probably just you know a nicer presented situation. But let's get back into this. I anticipated some backlash. Anyone who follows the lead of Congressman John Lewis, the late civil rights giant, and makes quote unquote good trouble, necessary trouble, runs the risk of being attacked by those comfortable with the status quo. I completely agree with that. Both in and outside of the community, that does happen. When you disturb the status quo, the status quo, be prepared for backlash. Be prepared for people to come for you. That does happen. But you know what? I'm not afraid of criticism. We live in a country where we have the freedom to criticize elected officials. And that's ridiculous that some people think the simple phrase, quote unquote, protect black women is controversial. Yeah, that is true. Should that be a controversial phrase? Should Megan be seen as being self-serving for saying something like that? Should Megan's, you know, past be brought up? And her saying a phrase like that, should people say, hey, Megan's not the best messenger for this? You know, it's a lot to say. It's a lot to take in there. We deserve to be protected as human beings, and we are entitled to our anger about a laundry list of mistreatment and neglect that we suffer. Maternal mortality rates for black women are about 3 times higher than those for white mothers, an obvious sign of racial bias in healthcare. Some folks are saying, well, black women poor, and because of that, black women don't got access to good healthcare, and they shouldn't be having babies by no good pookies and ray rays and gangsters and thugs. That's what black women do. And them black thugs they be messing with be broke. Right? So again, blaming black women for the situation. In 2019, an astronomical 91% of the transgender or gender nonconforming people were fatally shot were black, according to the Human Rights Campaign. So this was a bit of a nod, a bit of a shout out, and a bit of advocacy, a little bit for the transgendered community, the black transgender community, who so far have been kind of silent on this situation as far as I've seen. I haven't seen much about this, but maybe I'm just not looking. Maybe I'm just missing things. But this is one of those situations where you got to take note, black women, especially the black women who want to be saying that black transgender women are black women. To those black women, especially, right? Because I mentioned this before, but it's like if you end up blurring the lines and all that stuff, I think that black women are going to end up being pushed to the side in a lot of cases by transgendered women when it comes to advocacy and advocating for black issues. Basically, it's just going to be black women advocating for trans women's issues and trans women not really advocating for black women's issues, right? And then trans women jumping in and out of being women when convenient, like, saying like, oh, they're women without the trans, but then when it's convenient to be the trans women, then they'll be trans women, you know. So kind of like just jumping in and out of, black womanhood versus trans black womanhood when convenient. Black women, smarten up, stop getting played. All right, so next. Beyond threats to our health and lives, we confront so much judgment and so many conflicting messages on a daily basis. If we dress in fitted clothing, our curves become a topic of conversation not only on social media, but also in the workplace. The fact that Serena Williams, the greatest athlete in any sport ever, had to defend herself for wearing a bodysuit at the 2018 French Open is proof positive how misguided the obsession with black women's bodies is. And I do agree. I think ultimately there is an obsession with black bodies as well as, black women's bodies as well, definitely. For some reason, black bodies can be considered like a combination of threatening, sexually arousing, cool in some cases, or cool or hip in some cases, and just something that is an oddity as well. I would know. I've received quite a bit of attention for appearance as well as my talent. I choose my own clothing. Let me repeat, I choose what I wear, not because I'm trying to appeal to men, but because I am showing pride in my appearance, and a body positive image is central to who I am as a woman and a performer. So I want to unpack this for a quick second. Okay, so I appreciate that Megan is owning that she chooses what she wears, so versus saying like, management chooses it, or stylists do it, whatever. I do think it's a bit weird that, I'm not, because I choose what I wear because, or not because I'm trying to appeal to men. So she's saying that she's not trying to appeal to men by her clothing choice. I don't know. Because some of the clothing that she wears is like really like sexual and revealing. Okay, like if you ain't trying to appeal to men, then who you trying to appeal to? Women? But Megan did say, I think, that she, I guess, was bisexual or something, or maybe bi-curious or something, perhaps. But, I think Megan probably leans more towards men. But then again, I don't know. But yeah, I find that to be a bit interesting. And like, oh, it's her showing pride in her appearance and, being body positive. And I'm like, well, your body isn't really shamed, though. I mean, I can understand, say, Lizzo doing that and delivering that message more so than Megan Thee Stallion. Megan Thee Stallion's body type isn't shamed, at least not in the black community, you know? I mean, it's sexualized because her body type is, very curvy, and she's kind of tall and a bit, you know, bigger stature, or has a bit of a bigger stature. But I think more so Megan is using that because she knows that that's appealing to both men and women. Because men want to get with a woman like that, and the women want to be the woman like that. That's just what I think. I could be wrong. Maybe Megan is telling the complete truth and nothing but the truth. So help her God. But I don't think that's quite the truth, in my opinion, quote unquote. So she goes on to say, I value compliments from women far more than from men. I mean, I feel like she's dressing for men, you know, and I feel like she does like probably the attention that she gets from men. But she's saying she values the women's compliments more than men. But I feel like if you're dressing for women, seemingly that's what she's trying to say, or what she's implying. I feel like her dress would be a little different. It wouldn't be as provocative and scantily clad. But the remarks about what I choose to present myself have often been judgmental and cruel, with many assuming that I'm dressing and performing for the male gaze. I kind of assume that, yeah. When women choose to capitalize on our sexuality to claim our own power, or rather to claim our own power, the word own is italicized. Okay. Like I have, we are vilified and disrespected. So here I feel like Megan, she's sort of like, I don't know. I feel like she is not being completely truthful in this situation. Um, I do feel like whether she's conscious of it or not, she is performing and dressing for the male gaze. Um, and she goes on to say when women capitalize on their sexuality and reclaim it, they're vilified and disrespected. Well, I think there is some truth in that, but at the same time, the sexuality, you can be sexy, but I think a lot of people feel like Megan kind of like maybe crosses the line from sexy to being kind of like a bit, maybe a bit trashy, a bit slutty, a bit whorish, because you can be sexy, without being trashy or slutty or whorish, you know. But I feel like people may view Megan more so as the latter versus the former. In every industry, women are pitted against one another, but especially in hip hop, where it seems as if the male dominated ecosystem can only handle one female rapper at a time. While I do feel like, Megan makes a good point here, like in the industry when it comes to music, especially, like tons of folks are pitted against each other. Not just women, not just black women. You know, tons of folks are. And in hip hop, there's beefs all the time with black dudes. And I noticed that she said male dominated ecosystem. She didn't really call out black men in this when it came to this. And I feel like in this article, she doesn't really call out black men much at all. And I think that's possibly to make her message more palatable to black men and just black people in general, because, there's some black male identified black women out there that'll come at her too. But even with that, folks are just going to still dismiss the message. That's just one reason that they can't use. They'll just think of another reason, But, I do agree with her on that statement about, the hip hop kind of like being only able to handle one female rapper at a time as of late. Countless people, or rather countless times, people have tried to pit me against Nicki Minaj and Cardi B, two incredible entertainers and strong women. I'm not the quote unquote the new anyone. We are all unique in our own ways. So she's saying she ain't down for the beef. She ain't gonna be beefing with Nicki Minaj. Or Cardi B, which would make sense. I mean, she's collaborated with them and whatnot, and there's no reason to be. And like Nicki Minaj, she's off doing her own thing. Being a mom. Congratulations on that, Nicki. Even though I could say a lot of things about that situation. Like, that's the best you could do, Nicki. But on to this situation. Wouldn't it be nice if black girls weren't inundated with negative sexist comments about black women? If they were told instead of the many important things that we've achieved, it took a major motion picture, Hidden Figures, to introduce the world to NASA research mathematician Katherine Johnson. I wish I learned in school about this story as well as more earthly achievements that Alice H. Parker filed the patent for the first home furnace, or that Marie Van Brittan Brown created the first home security system, or that black women, too often in the shadows of such accomplishments, actually empowered the civil rights movement. It's important to note that 6 of the Little Rock Nine students whose bravery in 1957 led to school integration were black girls. I didn't know that. And that Rosa Parks showed incredible bravery when she refused to move to the colored section. I wish that every little black girl was taught that Black Lives Matter was co-founded by Patrice Cullors, Elisa Garza, and Opal Tometi. I hope I'm pronouncing these women's names right. If not, I apologize. Walking the path paved by such legends as Shirley Chisholm, Loretta Lynch, U.S. Representative Maxine Waters, and the first black woman to be elected to the U.S. Senate, Carol Moseley Braun. My hope is that Kamala Harris's candidacy for vice president will usher in an era where black women in 2020 are no longer making history for achieving things that should have been accomplished decades ago. Okay. So I guess Kamala Harris, she a sister. Kamala Harris, a strong black woman. Right? But that will take time, and black women are not naive. We know that after the last ballot is cast and the vote is tallied, we are likely to go back to fighting for ourselves because, at least for now, that's all we have. And this is by Megan Thee Stallion, guys. So, do you guys think that Megan Thee Stallion wrote this article actually, or do you think she got someone to write it for her and then she just slapped her name on it? Personally, I'll say that I think that Megan did write the article. Megan is a college student, and last time I checked, and people like Megan Thee Stallion shared her GPA, and folks criticized her GPA because they felt like it should have been higher. You know, I don't remember her exact GPA. It was somewhere between 2.5 and 2.99, somewhere between there, I believe. But folks felt like it should have been higher. And the thing is, like, I personally feel like if Megan was a black dude, you know, a rapper, like, oh, I'm going to college. Yeah, I'm in college. I'm doing my thing, and he shared his GPA and had the same GPA, folks would be defending it and being like, oh, okay, that's good. Keep trying. Or either they would defend it or say that's okay, that's good. They wouldn't be so quick to criticize and judge. I just don't think so, right? It would just be a good thing that a young black brother is going to college, right? That a young black brother ain't running the streets. And I just ultimately where I'm getting at is I just feel like the bar is just it's set lower, I think, for black men in a lot of situations for some reason. I think we hold black women to a higher standard and set the bar higher for black women for some reason. I don't know why. Yeah, Megan shared a lot of things in that article. You know, what do you guys think about that? Do you agree with what Megan said? Do you think that, she was saying some great things, but she perhaps isn't the best messenger for this message? You know, what do you guys think about all this? Let me know in the comments section. Until the next video, adios and goodbye for now.